And here's a video that will help you with how to write rectangular equations in polar form and also how to write polar equations in rectangular form. Got a few example problems here. Okay, this first problem says the letters x and y represent rectangular coordinates. Write the given equation using polar coordinates r theta. So if we look at this equation, we've got 5x squared plus 5y squared equals 7. Rectangular coordinates are x and y. Whoops. Rectangular are x and y. Polar are r and theta. So we need to get x and y in terms of r and theta. So the two most convenient formulas that you're going to be using to do this are the formulas, which this one, x squared plus y squared equals r squared. Remember, that's just the hypotenuse. Remember, r is just the hypotenuse of your triangle, the distance from the origin to the point. And we also know that x is equal to r cosine theta and y equals r sine theta. We learned that in some of the earlier videos. Okay, so what we want to do is get our equation in terms of x and y kind of in the form of one of these equations or all of them. And we can then start replacing x with r cosine theta, y with r sine theta, and x squared plus y squared with r squared. So in this case, looking at this equation, one thing that I see that jumps out to me is that we've got two 5's here. And if we factor the 5 out, then we see that we've got the r squared equals x squared plus y squared formula. Do you see that? Well, I was trying to do that in red. Okay. This is probably taking longer than it's worth, but x squared plus y squared is r squared. So now we can rewrite this. Well, if it'll stop doing that, as 5r squared equals 7. Get r by itself. R squared equals 7 over 7. 7 over 5. In your homework, you'll see you're given multiple choice. It just depends. There's no conventional way to express these equations. Like, you could take the square root of both sides and have r equal to root 7 over 5. But in this particular problem, the multiple choice answer, they wanted it to be r squared equals 7/5. Okay, moving on to the next problem. It says the letters x and y represent rectangular coordinates. Write the given equation using polar coordinates r theta. So looking at this equation right now, I see that we've got x squared and we've got y. And there's really not a whole lot of manipulation we can do to this. So let's just go ahead and replace our x and y values with our r cosine theta and our r sine theta. We could rewrite x squared as r squared cosine squared theta is equal to 3 times r sine theta. And that's now we no longer have any x or y values. Now everything is in terms of r and theta. So again, the multiple choice in the homework actually has you get everything to the same side. And so if we move the 3r sine theta to the left side, we get r squared cosine squared theta minus 3r sine theta equals 0. And that is in polar form. And now moving on to our final problem. The final problem has a little bit more to it. This problem says r squared equals cosine theta. And do you see, to be able to, and in this case, we're actually converting from polar back to rectangular. Same process, but we're going in the opposite direction. Do you see r squared can be replaced with x squared plus y squared, but cosine theta, there's nothing that you can really replace that with. X is r cosine theta, not just cosine theta. So we're going to try to do here is let's go ahead and replace r squared with x squared plus y squared equals cosine theta. And now that we've done that, looking at this, the only way to get cosine theta in terms of rectangular coordinates is to have an r multiplied to it. So we can't just randomly multiply cosine theta by r, but we could, if we multiplied both sides of the equation by r, we could say x squared plus y squared times r equals r cosine theta. Since we multiplied both sides by r, that's fine. Now, the left side, r cosine theta is equal to x. The right side, we can rewrite as x squared plus y squared times r. And the last thing that we have to get rid of is that pesky r. So since r squared is equal to x squared plus y squared, wouldn't you say that r is equal to the square root of x squared plus y squared? So now let's rewrite this as x squared plus y squared times the square root of x squared plus y squared equals x. And so now do you see that this is x squared plus y squared to the first power, and then this is x squared plus y squared to the 1/2 because it's a square root. So if we want to consolidate, we could, remember when you're multiplying two terms together, you add their exponents. So this will be the same thing as saying x squared plus y squared to the 3/2, because this is to the 2/2 equals x. And the multiple choice for that problem, actually one of the options is x squared plus y squared to the 3/2. So now, again, you know you're finished when your equation is fully simplified and you've gotten rid of r and theta and everything is in terms of x and y. These problems are a little bit more, sometimes you just have to play with them. They're somewhat like identities that you just kind of have to, you know, try new things and make mistakes to really learn how to do them. But once it clicks, they're pretty easy. It just takes a little while to get used to it. Hope this helped. See you tomorrow.